welcome to the show. I'm Sherry Schreiner. A couple things I want to talk about today. I'm not getting any too hyped on anything this month so far. Did notice that Obama has taken off to Hawaii, but he usually does. Every December, you'll start to see all the Satanists take off out of the country because most people are celebrating Christmas and they don't celebrate Christmas. You'll see a lot of them head to ski resorts and take ski vacations and go visit resorts and islands and stuff out of the country because they don't really celebrate Christmas. And so, it's always been a battle with that holiday. I hate it. Christians always threw a fit that they were trying to take Christ out of Christmas. I was like, they should. He has no part of it. They should take Christ out of Christmas. It's a pagan holiday. I'm not going to get into that tonight. I just posted something on my site that I saw was funny. All the hype the last couple of weeks leading up to the 19th today about the electors changing their votes to cause a revolution and vote in Hillary instead of Trump and cause all this stuff going on. And, it simply just defies the whole reason of having Trump elected anyway, because we know the strings are being pushed above everybody. We're just puppets. And the people in D.C. and the media, they're just puppets. And if they wanted Hillary to be president, she would have been voted in. It's out with the old, in with the new. And there's not a thing the old's going to be able to do about it because their time is up. It's up. It's not about Trump being elected in as much as it is about their time is up. And so I haven't really gotten into all the hype about all this Trump and Hillary battling back and forth. Just going to sit back and see what happens because, the father just hasn't had me involved with it. It's just a bunch of energy pushing. The mainstream media doesn't want to see the writing on the wall. And so they've been fighting back every way they can. But their time is up. And so I didn't get involved with all the hoopla. I'd rather talk about stuff from the ancient past and teach you guys something than just spin the wheel on everything else that's going on that's spinning nowhere. One of the things that's caught my attention lately is all the drama with the Antarctica. Certainly not something we're used to even hearing about. I'm pretty sure I always thought the Antarctica was a small patch of ice down on the South Pole. And whenever they show you the pictures of the Antarctica, they show you a few little buildings for scientific and research and stuff like that. They don't, they've never made a big deal out of Antarctica, ever. And now it's in the news a lot. Come to find out, hey, Antarctica's pretty big. It's 2 times the size of the United States. Who would have thought? All you ever see is a patch of ice and snow and maybe some mountains and glaciers melting, so they want you to think and push their global warming. A couple of theories going on. But, Obama was in Antarctica a couple months ago, and then that started a trail of everybody else heading to the Antarctica. The Pope's been there, the Russian Orthodox leader's been there, all these Illuminati families were heading down there. So there's obviously something they want to see with their own eyes. Especially if there's something interesting going on, because Obama is wishy-washy as he is. And the fence rider that he is in all things, he always likes to see things with his own eyes or hear it with his own ears. He's one of those kinds of people. And so if there's something going on down there to see, it doesn't surprise me that Obama was taking off to go see it. There's a couple of theories going around. that they found underground cities under the ice. Which doesn't surprise me, really. I mean, we know Shambhala's down there, and they use the South Pole entrance to go into the inner Earth city, Shambhala. It's also accessible from Mongolia, from India. Huge underground city at the Tall Whites run. And the Tall Whites are a tall Nordic race, very blonde, very blue-eyed. And these are the Aryan race that Hitler referred to. When he wanted to create the Aryan race, it wasn't a German Nazi race he wanted to recreate on Earth. It was after these tall whites, this alien race. He called them Aryans. And they were the ones who gave the Germans UFO technology. Now, see, back in 1933, when Eisenhower was first approached, I think the First Contact movie was made about Roosevelt when he met them in 1954. But Eisenhower had met with them in 33. And he had also met with the Greys. See, there's two different factions. There was the white, tall whites, who they call the tall whites. But what they are the Watchers that rebelled against their positions as angels of heaven watching over the earth. And they fell to earth, and they wanted to procreate with mankind, the women. And they were the ones who created the Nephilim, the half human, half giant children on earth, giants on earth, the Nephilim. They were described in the Book of Enoch as the Watchers' rebellion. They were the Watchers who rebelled. And Lucifer had told them if they left heaven, he would let them have any woman on earth they wanted. They could have the run of the women. And so he enticed them to rebel against heaven and come to earth, in a sense, falling like he did. So they fell to earth, became their own separate race, distinct from Lucifer's reptiles at that time, because he was already cursed and in trouble with his problems with Eve and Lilith. So all of his people were already pretty much at that time reptilians. What we know is like reptilians, we call them lizards, the fallen angels that lost their looks and returned into lizard-like beings. The Watchers never lost their looks. You know, when they were judged, they were just kicked out of heaven. They lost their angelic powers, but they never lost their looks. And so they still look very angelic. They're very, very tall, very, very blonde, very blue eyes. They didn't lose their looks. And so they kind of made their own communities around Earth. And they were also very dominant in the Pleiadians and the Andromeda Galaxy. They're also very noted for living in Mount Shasta in California, but they moved to Hawaii. I don't think there's anything left in Mount Shasta. There might be, but I thought it was kind of funny a couple of years ago when hearing about how the inhabitants of Mount Shasta had moved to Hawaii, because we had done a lot of Oregon work. Like a lot of warriors were always heading up that way, Oregoning Mount Shasta and getting the water. Just because they look humanoid and semi-angelic type people, they are still wicked and fallen, and so the Oregon is going to bother them because they're in a wicked, fallen state. And it's this race, these fallen Watchers, that that Hitler ran to in the South Pole during the World War II. Now think about it, because, okay, Eisenhower meets both groups. He meets the Greys that were part of the Satan's reptilian faction, and he meets the Watchers. And the Watchers say, hey, we'll give you all this alien technology. They could have had their own anti-graft machines. But they had a stipulation that they couldn't use them for war, and they had to lay down their weapons. They didn't want any war. They're a peaceful people. And they made the same deal with Hitler. Now, Hitler took him up on it because none of his Foo Fighters, the Air Force and ancient historians will, I'll tell you, they saw these UFO crafts in the sky, but they never fired on them. You know, they weren't warcraft. They weren't armed with lasers and plasma technology and all that stuff. They were just aircraft. They weren't used for that. The United States signed an agreement, an alliance with the Greys. So Germany signs an alliance with the Watchers, fallen Watchers, with all whites. And the United States signed an agreement, an alliance with the Greys and the Reptilians. And they soon learned how awful that agreement was. I don't know why they would expect Satan to keep an agreement, even his people. But they had parts of their agreement were that in exchange for technology, that the aliens, the Greys, could abduct humans. But they had to give them a list of the names of the people they abducted. You know, they had to give the government a list of names. And of course, maybe a year or two went by and the government realized a lot more people were being abducted than the aliens were giving names over for. You know, they learned that they weren't keeping their treaty agreements. And yet the aliens were giving them all this technology. Now, they had set up a mutual place to work together to transfer technology and the knowledge. And they called this place Area 51. And that's what it became known as. There's deep underground bases there. It's probably, I'm going to go and say it's a 13-level base, because almost every time you get into these domes, these joint alien and human bases like Dulce and the one in Utah, and anyway, they always end up being 13 levels. 10 levels that are known, and then 3 levels underneath that are completely unknown, because that's where the reptilians nest at. That's where they have their own tunnels and their own nests and hoarding places and stuff. Humans aren't allowed in those areas. Most humans don't even know that those levels exist. So they set up Area 51, and they started giving them technology. You know, we have laser technology, all came from them. All of our advances in electronics came from them. You know, we could have free power now, because they power these underground bases with magnets and crystal technology. That's how they're powered. We could have free energy now, but they won't release it because they make too much money soaking it out of us, paying outrageous electric bills. But that's how it all started, and they started building a lot of the crafts you see now with the Air Force and the Army, the Navy, all coming out of this technology that the aliens were giving them. Electronics, medical devices, all the stuff coming from them. And this gave the aliens a foothold into America, a free license, to come in and start abducting humans. And they started doing so en masse. And it was somewhere in Eisenhower's presidency where he realized they weren't just abducting humans for breeding experiments, but they were eating them. They were eating them. And he was horrified, supposedly horrified. And that's when he had the "In God We Trust" printed on the currency. Now, that could have been Eisenhower or Roosevelt. Because whichever one had learned that they were actually eating humans, it freaked them out. And so they put "In God We Trust" on the currencies. But it was too late by then. Because as the Father told me, that once you start meddling with Lucifer's people, they possess you. They just take you over. And so you see this a lot in sci-fi movies where all these military people will get like Alien, that whole series that came out, where the alien takes over them and possesses them. That's what was happening. They were getting possessed. And so that's how they got control of our government even back then, from the earliest days of 1933 in Eisenhower. That's when it all started. And so they had all these secret government groups, and you can read about them, people like Phil Schneider and William Cooper, and came out with a lot of information revealing all this stuff. That's all true. But they had all these secret Umbra clearance groups that would deal with the aliens. And they were all overtaken. They were all possessed. All of them were. So the United States had treaties, and every year the treaties are renewed. You know, maybe that's what got up Kennedy's crawl, and he wanted to end the whole CIA and do a whole alien UFO disclosure. And think about it now. He was back in '63. I wasn't even born, but he knew about it because every year the president renews the treaties with the aliens, and if they want to add something new in, they do that. And it's pretty moot now ever since then because they all got possessed and controlled by him, and that's why they only let Illuminati kids get elected as president, because they're bloodline to the same aliens that they're making treaties with. You know, the reptilian bloodline is the bloodline of the Illuminati families. So when you look at all the presidents that we've had, and pretty much all of the people who have been allowed to rise to power, fame, and fortune, because they're bloodline. That's why, you know, they're all bloodline, the aliens themselves. And so we made treaties and pacts and agreements and with a very carnivorous race, because they feast and feed off us, humans. Where the Germans got all their technology and stuff, they made their treaties and agreements with the tall whites. And for this, they got access to Shambhala. You know, everyone talks about how Hitler never died in the bunker, that was just a look-alike that died, and he had jumped aboard a submarine or whatever and taken off to the South Pole and actually ended up dying in Brazil. They say his last interview he gave in a church in Brazil that he was living in. He was almost 100 years old. But he had become a friend of the tall whites, and so they protected him. And they have these underground cities in Antarctica. Now, another interesting thing that's come out is that there are some who believe that there are giants in stasis, and that these giants are starting to come alive. And they gather this because of the tunnel openings that have been probably always known about. Of course, now they're saying just discovered. They've probably always known about them. The doors themselves are 2 stories high. 2-story high doors. Not to mention the width of them. And so these are pretty tall beings coming in and out of these doorways of these bases and cities down in Antarctica. They say that for thousands of years, the giants of old were put to sleep. I remember giants were roaming the earth, roaming the entire earth. They weren't just in Palestine. And Caleb and Joshua, when they went to war against the giants, 20 cities of them, to take the land of Palestine away from them so that it become an Israelite territory. They're coming out of Egypt. There are still giants in the rest of the world. You know, Lucifer, even back in the day of the Garden of Eden, you know, they had the rest of the world to themselves. And what they did was they would crossbreed. they would crossbreed all these different animals and stuff. People know where dinosaurs came from and stuff. That was all from their crossbreeding experiments. And of course, giants were roaming the whole world. You know, they weren't just stuck in any one area. And so what they believe is that a lot of these giants were put into sleep, into a coma, and that they're now coming alive. And they believe that these serpent mounds, these burial grounds of the giants, are actually not dead giants, but giants that are in stasis, giants that are going to come back to life. And I find that interesting because I know that in Ohio they have the serpent mounds, south of Columbus there, southern Ohio, kind of east of Cincinnati and south of Columbus, there's serpent mounds. And we went down several years ago, and the New Agers were having this big brouhaha about the skulls. Remember that? They had this huge thing and rituals about the skulls, crystal skulls. And so just to piss them off, we went down to the Serpent Mound area of Ohio and Oregoned it really well. And every place on their tour of this crystal skulls thing, we had Oregon before they even got to the next stop on the tour. It's kind of funny. And I remember it ended in L.A. for some reason. It was ending at the airport. Of course, we had that Oregon, too. I don't know what the whole reasoning was behind all that crystal skull stuff. I just knew we sabotaged it with the Oregon. But another thing also is that with all these serpent mounds, I always thought they were just pretty nasty anyway, so we'd go ahead and Oregon them just because they were nasty. And now it makes sense because there could very well be giants in stasis and comas sleeping in these serpent mounds. And if they come to life in these last days, they're going to be amongst us. So there's a couple of theories floating around, but I don't think anybody can doubt that a lot of the stuff has significance to the apocalyptic days that we're in. And we're certainly heading there because, like I've said, time is up for the New World Order 7th regime, and the 8th one is coming in. It's the age of Aquarius, what they call it. I've always called it the New Age alien agenda because it's all the New Age blah-blahers and the aliens who are using gullible humans to push their agenda on Earth. You know, when you go to New Age board stuff, you know, they're just so deceived. You know, they're good people. They're not evil people. I don't think I've ever ran into anyone who was a violent, vicious person out of them. They're not narcissists. They're very giving people, loving people. Just very gullible. Very, very gullible and stupid. And a lot of them claim to be Christians. And they're praying to the Father, and they go through all the motions and words, and you're like, what? You know, there's this one guy who does a lot of videos, and his name's Gary Larrabee. And he did this video. I don't watch all of them. Every once in a while, somebody posts something funny, I watch it. And just to stay in line of what's going on over there, because, you know, I'm supposed to be the one that's, I've been the mouthpiece of that agenda for the last almost 16 years now, alerting people to who and what they are and exposing their agenda and getting people prepared for what's coming. I can't handle it on a daily basis. It's just too much. But I do keep up to date on what they're doing. But they posted a video today. And some of the stuff is just so far-fetched to believe. And you wonder, why don't these people just ask themselves some basic questions, you know? Are they all just plain Christian? Are they all just secretly possessed here? You know, because he's going on, there's this guy named Kent Dunn he always talks to, supposed to be his intelligence contact. And he's going on about a story about how Obama's in Hawaii. and he wants to go to Chicago and play golf with his buddy. But the Air Force pilots who fly Air Force One won't allow him to go to Chicago because it's on unofficial business. So he has to take a lesser plane, the plane that his dog supposedly rides on when they take him on flights, which I have a hard time believing they even give a rat's butt about that dog. But anyway, for story's sake, he ends up having to ride a lesser plane. Well, it's December 19th, and we're getting snow and ice bombed. So you tell me a golf course in Chicago that isn't under 2 feet of snow and ice. But we're supposed to believe, based on this story, that Obama just flew from Hawaii to Chicago to play golf with one of his buddies. I mean, seriously? Now, if they said they were going to pick up his buddy and fly him to Hawaii, they could have just put him on a United Airlines flight or something, So something very fishy about the whole story. It doesn't mesh. It doesn't mesh at all. But yeah, it's no surprise he's in Hawaii, and they're very mad in Hawaii because you know what? We probably have 4 warriors in that entire string of islands, but we've got it. We've got enough war going there to where it's ticking them off. And so I know they're angry about the Oregon in Hawaii. So we just have to keep getting it out there. But all these things, all these giants, all the stuff coming out of the giants, they're the locusts. They're another name for the locusts that are coming that I've been talking about, the giants, the locusts. In Revelation chapter 6, in verse 8, this is where I'm always quoting from on this show, about the pale horse. And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him. And power was given unto them over the 4th part of the earth, to kill with sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with the beasts of the field. Who's the pale horse rider? I've always believed it to be Sananda. And the event that's coming will introduce Sananda to the world. The New Agers call it the event. I've been talking about the event. Their next go-to big date is December 25th, which is Sunday, next Sunday. Time for their big event, their big arrival to the earth as ascended masters. They're coming as gurus, as ancient wisdom ones, teachers. They go by all kinds of names, but they're always, I laugh when I see it in the codes, and if they arrive and we're here, I know I'm going to have fun with that one. Because they'll arrive in their bathrobes, And the codes, in the Bible codes, it uses this term, bathrobal. They probably have on these long robes. So, I know I'm going to have fun with that one. They show up in their bathrobes. But hell comes with them. And when it says hell comes with them, that's the 4th dimension, folks. That's everything that operates in the 4th and the 5th. That's everything. That's Lucifer's dimension. And together, they kill 1/4 of the world. That's 25% of the population. That's over 2 billion people, folks. And with the beasts of the earth. It's not the beasts of the field, it's the beasts of the earth. That's 2 different things, folks. The wild beasts, the wildy beasts. I always see those terms. She-wolf. I always see that in regards to Lilith, the wildebeest, and the Bible code always refers to these fallen angels as animals. They're beasts. And not long after that the pale horse and hell is on earth, and you see the locust invasion, Revelation chapter 9. You could read Joel chapters 1 and 2. Revelation chapter 9. All these different invasions of these creatures, these beasts of the earth. They're very demonic and alien and fallen beings, folks. And so all this is going to be happening. All of it. Yeah, there's going to be giants. Yeah, I've had visions of them. And it's horrifying. I'm not going to be horrified because I'm going to be in the hands of the Father. For those who love Him, He will hold them in His hands and keep them safe. But when you see these things, it's like the kind of giant that you see in Jack and the Beanstalk. A little story when you were a kid, Jack and the Beanstalk. It's got a 30-foot giant running after humans. They're like grasshoppers to him. Remember what Joseph or Caleb and Joshua said? Israel, they were like grasshoppers on the side of the giants in Palestine. That's how it's going to be. We're like grasshoppers on the side of these giants. And they're going to come to life. They're going to come out of their rocks and their caves and their stasis chambers under the earth. And they're going to come to life. They're going to roam the earth. And can you imagine one of them showing up in a city as populated as New York, and then people just running like crazy, just like rats in a cage, a maze, just trying to run and get away from the giants, and they just reach down and they pick up a human, and they take a bite and bite its head off and pull their limbs off, their legs and their... I saw this in visions, and that's why I know it's going to happen. It's crazy. It's crazy. You think you're going to sit and point your 22s and stuff at them, think again, ain't going to... It's going to make them mad. When they operate in this dimension, they will be physical beings, and so I do believe guns will work. I just think you're going to unload one before you even affect one. The whole thing is if you get a creature down, like an alien or a demonic being or a giant, cut the head off. That was David's example. Because when David killed it with a stone, Goliath, he ran, took the giant's sword, and cut the head off and separated the head from the body. Why? So it couldn't reanimate. It couldn't come back to life. He wouldn't have done that if it wasn't possible. Reanimation and zombies, that's definitely a part of the last days. It's a part of it. The dead coming out of their graves through CERN, it's a part of it. I've seen the hole. They're going to bust down to hell and release the creatures out of hell. It's going to be like a land of the what is it called? Land of the living dead? Where they're all roaming the earth again, all the people who have died. It's literally going to be an open hell on earth. Literally. That's why the Father protects His people. That's why He has places of protection that they're going to be sent to. You've heard of Petra for the Jews in Israel, or they all run to Petra when they hear about the abomination of desolation being started. And the Father will have places here on earth. I know the churches all preach rapture and all this, but yeah, there are a few groups being raptured off the earth, but for the most part, remember, about 80% will be left here, and they will be protected on the earth. And then a huge bulk of them will be left to go through the persecution of FEMA camps because He doesn't find their faith perfect in Him. He doesn't find their faith perfect. He's going to refine them by fire. Notice the wording of that, folks. Because He's not talking about sinners here and people who outright reject Him. He's talking about people who profess His name, who profess Him as Lord and Savior, but He doesn't find their faith perfect in Him. In other words, they're doing things that make Him angry. They anger Him. And although they profess their faith and love for Him, They make him angry. And so he refines them through the fire, which is persecution. Right? No big mystery rapture removing everybody. It's based on your faith and your works and how he sees you. Because how he sees you is going to be different than how you view yourself. You know, how many times you try to wake people up and they reject you and just want to stay in their errors? And it's not because they're not ready for truth. It's just that they're not ready to give up the errors. They're afraid to be mocked and criticized and laughed at by others instead of being ready to just stand alone. You know, that's why I love my tough bunch, ragtag band of warriors. You can throw any stick you want to at them or stone. They're still going to stand for the Lord. They don't care what you think about them. They don't care what you say about them. We go through a lot of persecution, a lot of hatred by the brethren, but we still stand for the Father, and we don't bend. You can mock us. You can throw sticks, your stones, your hatreds. We'll stick with the truth. We'll stand in the minority rather than be with the majority and hang up the little Christmas trees and decorate the little Ishtar eggs and worship on Sun God Day. You know, the Ten Commandments never change. They're as good today as they were 6,000 years ago. Honor the seventh day. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. And I don't care what calendar you're in. Our calendar's probably changed 10 times since then. The seventh day is always the seventh day. It's simple mathematics, folks. It's such a huge stumbling block to most people for some reason. Anyway, another thing I want to talk about, every once in a while on the show I'll give out a huge truth bomb, and some of you will grasp it, and some of you will just mock it, make fun of it, and others just don't even know what to think, so you just let it slide because you're not ready for it yet. And that's okay. Because sometimes truth takes a while to settle in. But one of the truth bombs I gave on this show was that the sun was a dimensional object, and that in this dimension it was a lake of fire and flame, but in other dimensions it was a brilliant light. And so I'm watching this video. It caught my attention the other day. And this guy's talking about, he's a scientist, and he's talking about how the sun is a transformer, and that it transforms energy from another dimension into ours. I'm thinking, I wonder if he's listening to my stuff. He went on to declare that the sun is hollow. Wonder where he got that from. That the sun is a converter from another dimension into this dimension. Wonder where he got that one from. But he also said something interesting. He said you cannot see the sun in outer space. So in other words, if you're in space, if you're on the moon, or you're perhaps out of this particular Earth atmosphere, up on the moon or someplace else, up on Mars. We have a lot of bases on Mars. I've always said that. You don't see the sun. The sun is invisible from moons and planets. So what makes the sun unique so that you only see it when you're on Earth? Huh? I thought that was interesting. I didn't even know. I didn't even thought about that one. I don't remember seeing it when the times I've been in space. I don't remember seeing the sun either. Come think of it. People ask me, how do you know that Earth's not flat? It's not flat, trust me. The Bible says it's a sphere and it's round, and that's all you need to go by. Why are people trying to make a CIA psyop into this huge mountain that we've all been lied to, and the Earth is flat? So stupid. It's not even worth my time. If I had nothing else to deal with, I'd probably deal with that issue just to get a laugh. But it's so stupid. You could go up to a skyscraper like the Empire State Building and look around you and see that our horizon is round. If getting up in the morning and looking around you isn't good enough, go on the skyscraper, take an airplane ride, take an astral ride above the earth. You know, David talks about that. He says, "Do not cut my cord asunder." And he's talking about the silver cord. He mentions the silver cord. That's astral projection. I have found the same thing that's happened to me. They pull me out of my body, and the only thing connecting me to earth is a silver cord. Yeah, it happens. Must have happened to Dave because he knew about it too. And he is my ancient grandfather, so typically what you do is, okay, Jesus, where are you? And at that point, you're back in your body, but he'll answer to your name. I never knew his correct name when I was young and growing up. Learned it when I'm older, but you know what? He's not whatever you want to call it. Will only answer to a specific name. He'll accept whatever name you call him. The whole point of calling him by his real name is shows maturity. That hey, I know your name. Because if the Father's gonna write his name on your forehead, don't you want to know what his name is? Doesn't he say his people know his name? His people know his name because his people seek him out. They seek his truth out. They sat at his feet and said, "Father, teach me the truth in all things." That's the basics, folks. That's basics. So they know his name. And he writes his name on their forehead. So don't you think knowing his name's going to put you above a little bit of knowledge above all the rest who don't? Also, with Sananda coming and going by the name Jesus, the fake Jesus that's coming is going to use the name Jesus. So when you pray to Jesus, do you really think you want to be misconstrued to praying to him rather than the real Son of God, which his name is Yahushua ben David? How hard is it to give him honor and glory with his own real name, Yahushua ben David, Yahushua, son of David? You guys make things so difficult and so easy. You make things difficult. You know, I wonder about this whole sun only seen in Earth thing. I'm wondering if it's because there is a gateway in the east to the sun. The Bible talks about it. And it talks about how on the new moon that gateway is opened. And so if the Lord was going to arrive to earth, Yahushua, to come redeem the first fruits, the elect, it would be through the east gate, and it would be, what is that, a new moon? Something according to the Old Testament. Dana always writes that stuff out. He's our Levite. He's on my Facebook. You can go to my Facebook and search out Dana Haven. He's always our study and researcher. He posts all that stuff, keeps us up to date on it. But I know that there's a gateway. The largest gateway into heaven is the east gate. That's the most important gate. It's the most crowded, the most warfaring gate, I guess you could say. There's always battles in the east gate between the angels and Lucifer's fallen. That's why sometimes you'll see at NASA images where they're covering up what looks like UFO fights by the sun. Because that's usually the angels taking on Satan's forces, Lucifer's forces. That is the east gate to heaven. So there's also an entrance from the north, and that is the one Lucifer makes fun of with Christmas. I want to give you a truth bomb, and it's one I never talk about because it just rips the heart right out of me, because it's just outright mockery that I can't even deal with, that he can get so brazen and bold doing. But when you think about Santa Claus, and people call it Satan Claus, the whole imagery around Santa Claus is mocking the Father. mocking the Father. Hair white as wool. It's all mocking the Father. His chariot of horses, and Lucifer gives him reindeer and gives him a big old fat jolly look, and the whole red and white thing. Red signifying blood, white signifying righteousness. So it's almost like I've seen them depict Santa Claus in videos with the Catholic Church. The whole reason they use the red and white, I don't remember what they say, but I just know that white always symbolizes righteousness, and red always symbolizes blood. So they're mocking the Father in his perfect righteousness, and his Son, who he sent to earth to shed his blood for mankind. It's a whole mockery of the Father and the Son, and how he has his list of naughty and nice. The Father keeps meticulous lists of people and their actions and what they've done and what they've said. Everything is recorded. Meticulous. And so that's the whole mockery of that. He keeps keeping lists of who's naughty and nice, and how they're given presents at Christmas time. And I've told you before that the system in heaven was operated by rewards and earning your rewards in heaven. There's no money system. You were given your rewards by earning them and being rewarded them. You know? And so the whole Santa Claus thing, he's actually just making fun of the Father. And coming down to the North Gate, how they say Santa Claus comes down from the north. And, that's the whole Christmas tree, the erection, the whole penis erection thing that they mock with the pointed Christmas tree. And, of course, with the wreaths, a mockery of the symbolism of a vagina. Very sexual, very, very whole Babylonian fertility cult stuff, garbage. It's all just a huge mockery, folks. And December 25th has always been the birthday where they worship the birth of their sun gods, their false gods, and also depicting the birth of the Antichrist. And there's always been many Antichrists on the earth, starting with Nimrod. And I've told you, I revealed in my book, Interview with the Devil, how Lucifer had embodied Nimrod himself and played that character. And Lilith played Tammuz. They embodied those human beings and played those characters on earth. And so the whole thing with Tammuz and Nimrod, Semiramis, and all that, it's all garbage, it's all mockery, folks. But the last Antichrist who will come is the one who plays the beast of Revelation chapter 13 and unites the whole world into worshiping Satan as God. So you have all these churches who profess to love the Lord, celebrating and putting up their Christmas trees and hanging their wreaths and their little Santa Claus and cookies with their cakes to the Queen of Heaven, which that symbolizes everything Jeremiah said not to do. They do. Oh, but they have a concert. They'll have a concert. Sing Christmas carols. Sing about the birth of Yeshua on earth. Even though it was in September. They always mix in a little bit of truth, a little bit of something sanity to hide all the insanity. A little bit of poison that leads you astray. He deceives the world, folks. By deception, Satan deceives the world. Not going to come out in black and white and tell you exactly what he's doing. He deceives you into celebrating something so that you really don't know what you're celebrating, but you're celebrating, so he's happy. how he operates. So, I don't know exactly what's going to end up happening this week or not. I mean, Obama had threatened to take down the grid. So far, he has not. The event scheduled to start this week, 23rd, 24th, 25th. I'm not holding my breath. But it would be nice to get the show on the road. Otherwise, we all know we're here to the next time, which is Easter. The next arrival times. Look for the arrival of the Father and then Lucifer's losers. And I did see heaven in the southwest tonight, Enoch's planet, shining brightly. Beautiful and bright. Anyway, folks, time's up. Don't forget to support this ministry. You can go to SherryShriner.com. Help me keep the bills paid so I can do this show. Till next week, everybody. God bless.